I mean, technology is just, I mean, it's all around us. It's, as I've said in the book we've launched recently, it is frankly what has built everything around us. It is for better and for worse.
So what first inspired the creation of your jet suit?
So I get asked all the time about where this slightly unusual idea of creating these jet suits comes from. So the answer really is from a number of different sources. So my actual family background was from the world of aviation and engineering. My late father was an engineer, his father was a pilot, and my other grandfather used to run a big helicopter company in the UK. So I guess it was in the blood, but actually I've always been somewhat afflicted by this passion for taking on unusual challenges. You know, I spent about 6 years in the Royal Marines Reserve alongside an oil trading job. And it was at the culmination or sort of end point of that I started to hatch this idea, and frankly, the latest in a long succession of unusual ideas of could you kind of augment the human mind and body, which is a pretty crazy machine when you think about it. Could you add just a little bit of horsepower and try and get the human being to actually be able to fly in a really minimalist fashion? And how feasible would that be? Because conventional wisdom was that was impossible, but I like unusual challenges, and that was what the sort of origin of the idea was.
And did you experience any hurdles during the invention process, and how did you overcome them?
So yeah, in terms of hurdles, I mean, the biggest hurdle was that the entire concept still sounds ludicrous, and back then in 2016 was, you know, on paper, not really possible. It was considered impossible to miniaturize enough the power you'd need without gradually building a big enough flight structure that starts to look like a helicopter or a massive strap-on jet suit kind of thing. So yeah, it was kind of, there was no guidebook on how to achieve this. So, you know, obstacles included, how do you miniaturize the power? How do you carry enough fuel? How do you make it intuitive? And how do you utilize existing human balance and strength in a really organic way? So the only solution to all of that was actually going through just endless iterative prototypes all the time. Yes, taking risk, but risk that was manageable. And our key mantra is take that risk, because that's critical and a critical part of innovation. If you're not taking risk, you're not really innovating. But the downside of that risk has to be survivable from obviously a safety point of view, but also financially and reputationally. And those three guiding principles are what allowed us to make such quick progress.
Have you ever been in a dangerous situation while in the air, and how did you adapt to survive?
Yeah, so, you know, inevitably, we've had instances. I mean, we as a team have flown 115 events in 34 separate countries before COVID came along, and thousands more flights during testing and development, particularly of the wing system. It was the same wing system we used to land the last Guinness World Record at about 85 miles an hour, you know, kind of flattening out and flying. There are instances when I was learning literally in the air, because there's no real other way to do it, and playing with the wing system when I got it wrong, and I thought a maneuver with my legs would actually start to glide me down, and it actually pulled me into a very steep climb. So I went from, I was probably doing 50 miles an hour over water at a relatively safe 20 feet, which is, you know, quite survivable to hit the water at that kind of speed and height. And I pulled up and gained easily 100 feet within a second. And there's a small part of your brain literally goes into panic. But I think I've been in enough situations where luckily I can recognize that. And then you just realize that going down that pathway is going to be unhelpful. So you just dissect the problem into how fast am I going, how high am I going, and how stable am I? And you just take each of those problems and solve them one after the other. And yeah, luckily my instinctive reaction was to do that, and you gradually solve it and come down again. But yes, I do probably every now and then, you know, wake up at night and think, oh, you know, little flashback of imagining that scenario again. But yeah, it's an inevitable part of doing new stuff, I guess.
What role does technology play in the inventions of the future, and how has technology changed throughout the design process?
I mean, technology is just, I mean, it's all around us. It's, as I've said in the book we've launched recently, it is frankly what has built everything around us. It is for better and for worse, right? The problems we've got in the world are often related to the technology we've developed, but we're all in now. There's no going back. So it's only by technology and human ingenuity and creativity that we'll actually innovate our way out of those problems. And the pace of change is just, you know, amazing. I mean, there's a 3D printer whirring away in the background, which is a physical manifestation of the change we've got. That would have been a ludicrous idea 10 years ago, and now we use that constantly as a prototyping tool. So we we try and keep up with every new, innovation that becomes available. We are very lucky. We have outreach from companies that are developing cutting edge technology that want us to get involved and test and use things. In fact, that was one of them. And I think that's a key fuel to our journey. And it's fascinating. And we would be foolish to not jump on every opportunity that comes along, like new carbon fiber or new 3D printing metals and things like that allow us to go further and faster.